Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line. A good friend of the program, an old friend of mine, a former Philadelphia Eagle, Jaguar, even made Tom Brady look good occasionally there in training camp in New England. Jacksonville Jaguars, Chicago Bears. His name's Clay Harbor. You know him from reality television and everything else. The man is in school right now. The man is getting his degree, further education. And right now, Clay, you're on the – did you just sign up with the 33rd team, the Mike Tenenbaum platform? That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I am officially a member of the 33rd team, so I do daily, weekly hits with the 33rd team. I talk Bears, I talk Jaguars typically on the 33rd team, and it's been great, man. Mike Tannenbaum is doing a great job of putting an amazing team together with the 33rd team. Their website's great with just NFL content from coaches, GMs, and players, the guys that have played and coached the games, and they make our job really easy. They'll set us up with great questions. They do all the editing. They do everything. They got us set up with exactly what they want to talk about and lead us into the questions, and then they turn it out really quickly, man. It's been a lot of fun, and they've done a great job with everything there. Mike Tannenbaum's crushed that.
We had Mike Tenenbaum on the show maybe a year and a half ago or so and just talked about it. And it was the first I was really exposed to the 33rd team. And it just seemed like such a great idea for people that were in the game to talk about the game, to write about the game, to cover the game, and just hear their perspective is fantastic. So make sure you guys check out all things of the 33rd team, especially anything related with Clay Harbor right here. Clay, you also were doing some coverage. You're a busy man for NBC Sports Chicago. I have to ask you, when it comes to the draft, before we jump into the specifics of Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and all this stuff, I got to know, what's the vibe around the set at this time? What's the vibe you think around the NFL when you see your team making a trade with Howie Roseman? Because I have to assume that if my team is trading with Howie, I'm not going to win this deal. So Chicago makes a trade with Howie Roseman. They get Jalen Carter there. But when you saw that the Eagles had made a trade with the Bears, what were you thinking?
Well, that was an interesting trade because, I was on air right when it happened. We were going live on NBC from for the draft, and we're just talking about the picks. Each pick comes in, and we're just sitting there. Okay, maybe Carter falls. Like, he's going to fall. Carter's going to fall. And then the Bears are on the clock, and we're like, do they take Carter? Do we go O-line? Do we trade back? And then it comes, the Bears were trading with the Eagles. I go, oh, my goodness. I go, they're not taking Carter. But why are they trading with the Eagles? And then it comes up that it's a fourth-round pick. And then my thought is, obviously, they're not trading the pick for just a fourth-rounder. So comes out that there was someone else in the background that was maybe considering jumping the Eagles, but the Bears didn't want to go back too much because they're afraid Darnell Wright wouldn't have been there. So then from the Bears perspective, what fans are saying out here is it's a great deal because you were drafting Darnell Wright anyways, and you got a fourth rounder from nothing. But, obviously I look at the Eagles side too. And from that perspective, a fourth rounder for next year to move up and get Jalen Carter, who's arguably the best player in this entire draft. I mean, that's a steal. But from the Bears' perspective, they weren't drafting him anyways, and you got a fourth round pick. So this time I actually think it was semi-fair. I mean, the Eagles definitely got Jalen Carter for not a lot, but the Bears weren't going to take him. So they got a fourth rounder next year for nothing. I thought maybe they could have traded back to maybe around 15 to 20 and still got Darnell Wright. But, getting that fourth rounder next year as a fourth rounder myself, I know that you can, find value there. I know it's probably about a 25% hit rate as far as if the guy is going to be, live out his first year contract or not.
Gotcha. I do have to ask, because you have such a unique perspective, knowing the Philadelphia market and working outside the market. What is the reputation of Howie Roseman? Is it as rosy as we think it is for us here in Eagle Land? Do other fan bases just not want their general managers to answer the phone when they see that 215 area code?
Yeah, don't answer the phone when Howie's calling. I don't know why these guys keep doing business with Howie. Honestly, this guy's done a phenomenal job, and he just keeps getting better. He keeps getting it done. I don't know how he got some of these players on the board. Some of my favorite players in the entire draft, and he got more than one of them. So, I mean, his reputation in other cities is just as good in Philly. People do look at him as a guy that will go the extra mile to trade picks to get his team in the right position. He's not a guy that wants to just sit back and let things fall to him. He's a go-getter, and that's what a lot of teams want in their GMs.
Certainly. So let's delve into the specifics here. The Eagles do get at 9, courtesy of the Bears there in that 4th round pick. The Eagles at 9 get Jalen Carter. I was amazed. It's the guy that I thought would be the most exciting and the most plausible to get with, as I was referring to it, with that 10th pick asset, meaning they can move up a little bit, back a little bit, most likely up for a guy like Jalen Carter. So they get him. What was your reaction to the Eagles getting Jalen Carter, and how good and how high do you think his ceiling is?
It was a little bit of an up and down for me because I wanted the Bears to take Jalen Carter as a Bears guy covering the Bears. When Eagles got him, I'm like, yes. I'm like, wait a second, what? I just wanted the Bears. Now I'm like, yes. I don't know what to do. But overall, I thought it was a great pick for the Eagles. Carter can play. I think he's an unbelievable talent. And just watching him on film, he's a guy that can line up at the 3 technique. He can line up as a nose guard. He can line up as a 5 technique. That's inside shade of the tight end. And he can line up as a 6 technique, which is directly over the tight end, or a 9. You can put him on pass rush situations. You can put him anywhere along the defensive front, and he's going to be able to get the job done. I'm sure they're going to have some packages with him outside, with him inside. And he's got so much versatility on that defensive line. And I think it's a perfect spot for Jalen Carter just because – BG's old. BG was drafted in my draft class. That guy can mentor. The perfect guy to mentor Jalen Carter, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, the guys I used to play with. They're so smart. They've been through it. They've seen guys, talented guys. All he has to do now is look at these 2 guys, do what they do, and that's how you have this longevity and you have a career like them. And then outside of that, you got Jordan Davis and Kobe Dean there, 2 guys that he knows, went to school with, his friends that can come in there. So overall, I think this is an incredible landing spot for him. He's not even going to be able to be asked to do that much this year because they do got so many players there like Jordan Davis.
Mm-hmm. What do you make of the whole Bulldog connection? We'll get to Nolan Smith in a second there, but when it comes to the Georgia connection, how much does that really help a guy like Sean Desai and knowing that his players know each other so well already?
Well, they've been successful on the field together already. Half of it is already done. You want to know, okay, how are these players going to mix? You got Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter on the same line. Do they know how to play next to? They already have. They've won a national title. You don't even have to guess anymore. Sometimes when you're putting these pieces together, in basketball, you can get an all-star team, but if these guys don't know how to play together, it's the same in football. People don't realize that. Can you play together? These guys have played together. And Kobe Dean has played behind Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter before. Okay, so you already know that they have this chemistry and they know how to play off each other. So I think that's huge, and that's just going to work in the Eagles' favor.
We hear a lot about Nolan Smith, the undersized thing. People have compared him to Hassan Reddick. Well, Hassan Reddick's got 39.5 sacks in 3 years, so Hassan Reddick has worked out well for him. What can we expect from Nolan Smith? What do you think a ceiling is for a guy like him?
I think his ceiling is Hassan Reddick. I think he's a guy that can do the same type of things. I don't want to, say that, but if you look at a comp, you got a perfect comp for you right there in the room with you every day to see, because you can't do the things that Josh Sweat can do. You can't do the things that BG can do, but you can do the things that Hassan Reddick can do because you're just as athletic. You're the same size as him. And I know you hear maybe he's not great against the run. He was a top 5 Pro Football Focus. I think he might have been number 1 against the run, great against the run last season in the SEC. And I know he's recovering from his pec injury, but everything seems to be healed up and he's ready to go. But this guy, 41-inch vertical, 11-foot broad jump, 4.394. These are insane numbers, Mark. I don't care who you are. This kid is going to, just off of pure athleticism, is going to be able to do some crazy things that we haven't seen, in the NFL in a while. When's the last time you saw a defensive end running a 4.3?
Right. Yeah,
Exactly.
I don't think. Not to my recent memory.
Yeah, it's an incredible pick. And then also, if you go to Keely Ringo, this guy can fly. I don't know how he was there in the 4th round. This guy was a state champion in Arizona. He won the 100 and 200 and was ranked in the top 10 nationally. He can fly. He started all 12 games with Georgia, led them in interceptions and pass breakups. This is another steal from Howie. He's a guy that most people had on top 50 to top 100 on their draft board. So Howie just keeps getting it done, and the Philadelphia Bulldogs are looking good this year.
You know what? Person in my chat, I got to ask you again to step forward. Somebody in my chat said and I think this is the second time I'm forgetting who it was. They said the Broad Street Bulldogs, and I thought that was poetry. I thought that was brilliant. We haven't talked since Sean Desai got the job here in Philadelphia. Covering Chicago, knowing Chicago, he was there in Chicago. How do you think he deploys the guys that he now has, especially all these Georgia Bulldogs and the veterans of Brandon Graham and Hassan Reddick and Fletcher Cox? What do you think we see when it comes to Sean Desai, now the Philadelphia Eagles defensive coordinator?
I think he's got a problem, but it's a problem a lot of defensive coordinators would like to have.
Okay.
Because you got a plethora of guys, and I think you go at it like you start on, early in the season, you're heavy on BG and Fletch, and you let those Josh Sweat, you let those guys kind of take off early, and you bring these rookies along slowly. Why wouldn't you? You can do that. BG and Fletch and Josh Sweat, these guys can still get the job done. Then you bring up these rookies, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. You bring them in, you let them kind of get their feel for it, and obviously Jordan Davis is a guy that didn't get a lot of snaps last year, but he's a guy that can play. You got a lot of options here, man. You got to have some personnel groupings where you got Hassan Reddick on the field with BG and Nolan Smith at times, and then Jalen Carter. You can do a lot. You come up with groupings on pass rush downs, run stopping downs, specific plays. When you want to get specific things out of these guys, you put them in the positions to play to the best of their ability. And then I think, Sidney Brown is a guy that's one of my favorite picks of the draft too. There's so many good picks here. Obviously, you got Marcus Epps and C.J. Gardner-Johnson leaving, but I think he can compete with Blankenship and Edmonds for a starting job. I don't think those jobs are safe. I think in training camp, if he comes in and has an excellent training camp, hit 6 interceptions last year, which was tied for third in the FBS. This guy was first team All Big Ten. I went to the Senior Bowl. I don't know. I thought the guy was playing really well. He covered better than I thought he would. He's in the box safety. I think Sidney Brown's another guy that could play and turn into a really big steal for the Eagles there as well.
Mm-hmm. I got to ask you about this as well. This is another incredible trade on the draft. Saturday, it all pops up on our phones. It's out there from Adam Schefter that the Philadelphia Eagles have acquired DeAndre Swift from the Detroit Lions, and now he'll be in the backfield with Kenny Gainwell, Rashad Penny, and also Boston Scott. People were telling me, our friend John McMullen at Jacob Media was telling me that the Eagles' leading rusher is not on the roster yet. This was a month ago. Then they go ahead and they make this trade for, most people were hoping it was Bijan Robinson. Man, did you get great value? Didn't trade away much. 4th-round pick. You can get DeAndre Swift here with the Philadelphia Eagles now in a 7th-round pick swap. Go figure. What kind of impact do you think Swift will have here in Philadelphia? Do you think he will be the number one ball carrier in Philly?
Yeah, as a guy, covering, the Bears, I got to see a lot of Swift with the Lions, these past couple of years. And the guy can play when he's healthy. He has injury concerns. He's missed a lot of games, but when you just look at that home opener against the Eagles last year, he ran the ball down, obviously, as early in the year, had 144 yards. He was just running wild. And that's probably something that Howie saw. Bill Belichick's famous for that. When he studies guys have good games against Bill Belichick. Somehow they end up on the Patriots. But he averaged 5.5 yards per carry last year, up there with Penny. Rashawn Penny averaged the same. I think that these two guys, if they can stay healthy, can honestly be one of the best running back duos in football. And obviously Penny, the problem is with Penny, he's missed as many games as he's played, right? But if these two guys can stay healthy, I don't think healthy that there's many running back rooms that can say they have players that can play like them. And obviously it's hard to forecast if a guy is going to stay healthy or not. And that's a position that takes, a lot of hits. It's a tough spot. I'm glad I'm not wasn't a running back. I had to do a little bit of fullback in my day, and that wasn't fun. But if these guys stay healthy, I think Swift and Penny split the load. And obviously, you still got Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell, but these two guys are playmakers. 35th pick in the 2020 draft for a 4th rounder. Come on.
Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. The last thing I want to ask you about here is the news that broke last week about Jalen Hurts and his contract. It's absolutely off the charts. Lamar Jackson, of course, just comes along like 20 minutes later and signs a bigger deal, but whatever. I'm not bitter about that for somebody else, but whatever. I can't really think of many athletes that I have been sure about as much as I'm sure about Jalen Hurts being worth every, not only penny of that contract, but the no trade clause attached to it as well. I'm amazed by this deal, and I don't think I've ever looked at an athlete and said, yes, absolutely, this guy, long-term deal, guaranteed money, no trade clause. Yes, I am buying 1,000% of the stock that the Eagles are selling and Jalen Hurts is selling in Jalen Hurts. Have you ever been more sure of an athlete than Jalen Hurts?
I mean, I don't know if I say I've probably at some point been more sure, but I think it's a no-brainer. I think Howie, once again, we got to stop just talking about Howie. The guy's gonna get a big head. But I mean, great move to sign Hurts. Hurts, the thing I love most about Hurts, obviously, like the on the field stuff. He can throw, he can run. He's just got such a unique skill set. But you look at the adversity this guy overcame. You look at last year at this time, the media out there. I mean, people were saying we're gonna draft a new guy. We have this team set up. I don't think Jalen Hurts is the guy. I remember that. And I remember going to training camp and he's still catching grief. And I go, wow, this guy's incredible. I don't know. What do people talk about? I'm hearing reports. This guy's not throwing the ball well. I go to a couple weeks of training camp. And I mean, obviously that was after watching the Bears, I'm like, wow, this guy is incredible. I mean, they're completely like, what are people talking about? So I think this was a no-brainer, but for the reason that Jalen Hurts is all football all the time. There's guys that, maybe they have other priorities. They like the fame. They like to party. Right. They like to do this and that. And Jalen Hurts is strictly a football player that wants to win. It's hard to find that in a young guy. So I think that's exactly why you got to stick with this dude. He's going to keep getting better. You can't affect him. What he went through last year in Philadelphia is as hard as any quarterback will ever have to go through something. I mean, that's difficult. And he went through it and came out as an MVP candidate and took the team to the Super Bowl. But what I love is the story saying like, hey, Hurts is, man, this guy just took less money. What are you talking about? He didn't care about the money. He just wanted to play. This guy, you're telling me a guy that just got paid $250 million. Oh, I don't care about money. You just got $250 million. You care about money. If it was all about winning, maybe you try to make ends meet and take $150 million and just, struggle for a little bit. Like, I don't know, maybe you only go down to $100 million and maybe you can't even pay your electric bill. But that whole storyline of, man, this guy just took so much less. Come on. He earned that money and that's a good value. But don't try to tell me that this guy took some crazy great deal for the team when you just paid him $250 million and most of that guaranteed. Like, come on. Obviously, we love Hurts, but we don't have to try to sell that.
Leave it to the NFL to invent something that has to clarify the word guaranteed. The NFL has guaranteed, and then what else do they have, Clay? They have fully guaranteed.
Oh, yeah.
He is fully guaranteed $110 million and 3 years. That's like fully guaranteed. Now, in the 3 years, there's going to be other guys that sign contracts. Already Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, probably Justin Fields as well. Your boy Justin Fields. And then what's going to happen after that 3 years? Renegotiation. That's where, we think this is a big deal. Oh, baby. The next one is going to be mega huge Kajunga, if this one wasn't already. Clay, always great catch. Oh, let me ask you about Justin Fields, because the portion where you're talking about going to Chicago's training camp, we won't send that to Chicago. That won't make its way to the interweb in Chicago.
Please, part, I'll get chased out of here.
How, as an NFC team, how aware of the Bears with Justin Fields should the Eagles be when it comes to potential playoff matchups?
I mean, it's a possible first-round matchup, but I mean, the Bears, I think, in the division, obviously you get the Lions and the Vikings, the Packers, who knows with Jordan Love, how he's going to be, but he was in that same draft class with Jalen Hurts taken ahead of Jalen Hurts. And, who knows how he's going to be, but I think they could possibly be a first-round matchup. They could spring an upset, but I mean, they're not even in the same stratosphere as the Eagles. I think they could possibly in the NFC North, because it's not a strong division right now, could possibly sneak in to the second spot, maybe get a wild card, possibly win, because I'm not sold on the Lions. I think the Lions had a good draft, a good offense last year. The Vikings, Kirk Cousins disappears in the playoffs. I mean, They got a solid team. The Packers without Aaron Rodgers couldn't make it with Aaron Rodgers last year to the playoffs. Now he's gone. You got Jordan Love's first year as a starter. You really didn't give him much help on the offensive end. At least you went Lucas Van Ness in the first round. They ended up getting Sam Laporta, and they got him a wide receiver as well. But I think the Bears could make the playoffs. But that D-line, you talk about the opposite of the Eagles D-line. Look at the Bears D-line. They had 20 sacks last year, and they didn't draft one edge rusher, not one. So I think just because of that huge hole in the D-line, the Bears are still a year off from being a real contender.
Last thing I want to ask you, it goes back to the draft, but more from a player's perspective here, Clay.
Oh, yeah.
How do you guys watch the draft? When you're with the Eagles, you're with the Jaguars, whatever, how are you guys watching the draft? Are you guys talking about it? Are you guys talking to the locker room? Are you guys working out together, being like, I hope we get this guy. If we get this guy, this is great. Meanwhile, the other guy in the room that already has that position is like, what the hell, guys? Like, what, how do you guys as players watch and follow the draft?
So it's simple. Honestly, for us, we all, as we think that we're good, and like obviously these guys are going to help us, but you just don't want the team to take someone in the first or second round of your position. Typically, I mean, if you're a guy, if you're a veteran that knows you're there in the team, which is only a few guys, you don't really care either way. Okay, we drafted, you're a big time receiver. We drafted another receiver. Okay, that'll help. That's great. We're going to work together now. As a guy that's a mid-level guy, if you're not the star player and they go first or second round, even third sometimes at your position, you start packing your bags. You go, okay, obviously they're going to keep this guy. They got plans for this guy. I'll tell you a quick story. My fourth year with the Birds, when Chip Kelly came in after Andy Reid got fired, I was a number 2 tight end for 3 years with Brent Selleck. Mm-hmm. And, without then the Eagles signed for agency James Casey. So we signed Casey. He's a guy that does a lot of similar things that I did. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I don't have a problem competing with this guy. They did pay him a lot of fully guaranteed money. But overall, you watch the draft. First round, I think we drafted Lane Johnson that year. And then, second round came along. And with the second round pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Zach Ertz. And I'm like, all right, my time here in Philly has come to an end. There's no way they're keeping, all of us that are similar type players. So at that point, you kind of realize you're not in the cards, and it kind of gives you a telltale sign. And then you go from there. So as a player, you kind of don't want them to draft a player at your position. You do want some help. Say if you need help on the O-line and you're a tight end, if you're an offensive lineman, you could use another position. But when it's exactly your position, that's what you don't want. And I've experienced that personally, obviously with the when Ertz got drafted here, and it's basically just tells you, hey, your time here has come to an end.
I'm going to see Zach on Friday. I'll make sure he knows I'll see if his ears are ringing.
Yeah, we talked about him on the show. Yeah.
Clay, always great catching up with you, man. Seriously, you do a great job for NBC Sports in Chicago, for 33rd Team, all the things you're covering here, and also sports radio in Chicago. Yeah,
the score 670. Do a lot of work with them. I'll be hosting this Friday. We're talking Bears and ball. Obviously, in Philly, you don't care about the Bears, but if you want to get some insight, some insider info on one of your maybe competitors in Justin Fields, DJ Moore, Chase Claypool down the road, tune in, check us out.
Did you guys shoot fireworks off in Chicago when Aaron Rodgers officially got traded to the Jets?
Oh man, you remember the Aaron Rodgers quote after that one game? I own you, Chicago. I still own you. He's finally gone. Finally, we can own our own team again in Chicago. So I was happy.
Clay Harbert, make sure you guys are following him on all social media platforms, including Instagram as well. He's a great follow on Instagram, and also right here on Twitter as well at Clay Harbs 82. Clay, great catching up with you, man. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it, Mark. Thanks for having me.